In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you. In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
Good evening there, and welcome to the latest Elite FPL Sunday Surgery with myself and Jason. Hello, everybody. Hello, Jason.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned in Twitter earlier on, I have got a lot of things to get off my chest regarding yesterday. You may or may not believe this, everybody, but I'm not exactly happy about this particular game week. You may be thinking you're speaking absolute nonsense, but the reality is that at the end of the day, I play this game for a cash money league, and it's not really being gone that well for me. But I'll explain all in the next 30 minutes or so. However, if you are a member, a premium member, you would have seen the X-rated podcast that I uploaded earlier on. It's a 30-minute podcast. Basically me getting things off my chest regarding all things this game week, and more importantly, how I feel about fantasy football in general, and so on and so forth. We obviously had a couple of games today, and my goodness, Jason, Tottenham drawing 1-1. The biggest talking point in there is a leg break. Do you know much about this?
Yeah, I saw the game, unfortunately. I'm just going to turn my microphone up 1 second. Yeah, so I saw the game. It was pretty poor from Tottenham for a lot of the game. It was talking about the leg break. It was really unfortunate. Son obviously had no intention to cause any harm to Andre Gomez. Came in from kind of from behind, clipped him, and as he went down, it looked like his leg folded underneath him, and
right.
And what actually happened? It was because Gomez was going at speed, and Son kind of went in behind, and then Aurier was kind of like, if you imagine Aurier was coming from the other way, like towards Gomez, so it was kind of like a proper like collision. And if you look on the replays, I think it was a bit of both. I think Son kind of initiated the challenge, caused Gomez to start kind of tumbling down, and then somehow it literally was like hitting a brick wall, and that brick wall was Aurier, and it looked really awful. Son, I imagine you haven't seen it, but Son was absolutely in.
Oh no, so yeah,
he was gutted. Yeah, he was gutted. It was just horrible injury, and we don't like to see that at all.
No, absolutely.
He won't be back for quite some time.
No, the game, I mean, talking of the game, it ended 1-1. Toussaint and Ali with the goals, Digne and Son with the assists, and the bonus points went to Aurier with 3, mentioning Aurier there, yeah. Ali with 2 and Digne. But then we move on to the Leicester game. I couldn't believe this when I saw this, and I've got something to say to all you guys. And like I said, I'm getting some things off my chest, because a lot of you, without swearing, annoyed me yesterday when I was looking back at the chat, and I just think a lot of you come out with a load of BS. And again, I'm holding back my swear words. Again, if you want to hear swear words, I'm not going to promote it, but I did make an X-rated video for our members. But yeah, I think a lot of you come out with absolute effing rubbish, to be honest with you. And I find it extraordinary, the amount of garbage that you people give me, the amount of stick, I suppose the word, another word beginning with S, which is family friendly, a lot of stick that I seem to get for making perfectly normal decisions, and yet they pay off, but I get stick for it, and it's quite extraordinary. But I will go into detail in a minute, and it involves this player, Soyuncu. 2-0 Leicester, they won. Soyuncu, of all players, getting a goal. Jamie Vardy, Jason's player, getting a goal. Maddison and Gray with the assist. Soyuncu with 3 bonus points. Maddison with 3, and Schmeichel with 1. Your thoughts, Jason, on Leicester winning 2-0?
Yeah, I always thought that Leicester had it in them to win. I agree with a lot of people were saying it was going to be a close game. 2 goals. I forget what my prediction was now, Steve. You wrote it down, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I haven't got the piece of paper in front of me.
I think I said it was going to be like... I think I may have said 2-0, actually. Correct me, please, if I'm wrong. It was a pretty good game for Leicester. Palace had spells where they were dominant as well. But again, it was the quality, really. Some really, really good quality from Leicester. And Soyuncu, literally, he was man of the match for me. He was man of the match. He was absolutely brilliant the whole game. defensive duties, 10 out of 10. And he came in and stooped down and scored the first goal. And it was just like one of those weeks where you've gone from strength to strength. You kind of have these weeks where like your players just miraculously score big. And I just thought, well, I know you've got him. And I was thinking, oh, well, that's typical, but I'll take the points, of course. And I thought, well, Jamie Vardy, he's looked decent, but he's, it's going to be just my luck, isn't it? I bring him in, he doesn't do anything, and lo and behold, he does score. So it's kind of justifying my Callum Wilson switch. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm very, very happy for being on the Vardy train going forward as well. I think a lot of people looked at it as a knee-jerk from the Southampton game, but I certainly don't see it as one. I think that Vardy is an asset that a lot of people are going to want to own going forward, especially with dodgy fixtures coming up.
Well, how's this for irony? I legitimately had my transfer page up, and it had Vardy, Jimenez, and Son in my team for a -8. Oh, sorry, yeah, for a -8.
It would have been Son.
And then hold a minute, and then I literally hear on the radio about what happened. I was just like, yeah, let's get rid of Son. And then I was thinking of putting in Pulisic instead.
The referee actually had the yellow card in his hands.
Yes,
originally.
yeah.
And then what the referee hadn't seen. I don't think the referee had actually seen what had actually happened to Gomez, because Gomez kind of went down into a heap and held his leg, understandably held his leg. And the referee kind of just was like, right, get the yellow card out, because it didn't look, upon first glance, I must admit, it didn't look like it was a leg break. I don't know if anyone else can agree on, but basically, the referee saw what had happened and was like, no, it's gonna have to be a red card. But anyway, moving on from that. Yes, Stevo. So your transfers are going to change.
Yeah, I'm contemplating a -4 or a -8. Again, I'm seeing as to how I end up. Now I've done the maths regarding players around me. So I looked at the 11 players above me in the Cash Mini League as of today, with the points, the bonus points, everything. And I'm going to end up on 588 points. That's 35 points, including Lundstrom's coming from today. I'm going to be going ahead of these 11 players. I'm going to end up 25 points behind you. I'm going to be 71 points off fourth, I calculated. 71 points off fourth. I'm not going to lie. I've had
You're going to be 58th. You're going to be 58th in the Cash League.
58th, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's just get this off my chest, shall we? So, yesterday when I was watching... I'll start with this, first of all. Yesterday, when I was watching... or was doing the Match of the Day challenge... the whole point of it was that I didn't know the results. That is it. I didn't say anything about checking my team. I didn't say anything about knowing what my fantasy football team was. All I said is that on that day, I will be avoiding every single Premier League result on that day, and then I'd watch it live. Right? Fine. Not a problem with that at all. I then started doing it, and it all went perfectly fine. This morning, I watched the show back, and the amount of morons that I see in the chat going mental at the fact that I checked my team after the fact that I found out that Mendy hadn't started, right? And I was like, and we all saw it. If you haven't seen it, just go on Twitter at Elite FPL and you'll just see the clip of me finding out.
The panic kind of
set
in.
Yeah, let me finish, Jason, right? This isn't Friday night. So,
all right,
so anyhow,
Salter. All right, carry on.
We then find out throughout the game that Man City then go on to win 2-1. We then move on to Sheffield United match. All I'm thinking in my head is, did Mendy come on for a 1-point cameo? That was all that was going through my mind. Okay? For anybody that's ever done this and takes this game seriously, if you're telling me that you could do that on a Saturday, not knowing any of the results and doing the Match of the Day chat, by all means, come in the chat and just let me know. And we'll, in fact, come onto the Discord and we'll have a coherent conversation on a phone call. Instead of just hiding behind a keyboard, we'll talk in person. Because there is one individual, I'm not going to call him out, that really, really did pee me off with the amount of rubbish that they come out with. And I'm just like, you are a piece of whatever for what you said. So anyhow, it gets to the Sheffield United game, and obviously I see that Lundstrom scores first, and my immediate reaction was, holy, Mr. Reed, holy fook. He'll know that joke. I thought, oh my goodness, Lundstrom has scored. Everybody in our Cash Mini League owns Lundstrom. I'm going to have to check if Mendy came on for a 1 point cameo. My anxiety, right, when I first started that challenge, I genuinely wanted to be sick, because I had gone through the whole day for, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 hours of not knowing anything apart from a couple of the outcomes, but I didn't know exactly what had happened. And I just wanted to be sick. At that point, when I find out that Mendy didn't start, I was thinking, I can't even remember if I put Lundstrom as first bench, and did Mendy even come on as a 1 point cameo. At that point, I thought, I'm going to have to check my phone. Now, at that point, I genuinely didn't look at my points. All I did, it was ludicrous. I was on my phone and I'm covering up the points on my phone and trying to, it's very difficult, trying to hit the icons to bring up my team, just so I could see if Mendy, and you can see it live on screen, it's there, just to see if Mendy came on for a 1 pointer.
Yeah, I think, can I just make a quick point? I know where this is going, and I think Matt Henley has made a very, very good point, because I kind of was the same. We were wanting to see you stress over the fact, did I put Lundstrom in? We obviously didn't care about how you felt. We just loved the entertainment factor of you kind of stressing and being like, oh my God. And then obviously then you'd celebrate when you found out. But it was kind of like the selfish part of the chat and the selfish part of me was like, no, Steve-O, I don't want you to know just yet, because this is like this is sort of like a beautiful story where there's like a build up, a massive build up, and then all of a sudden you think everything's gonna fail you, and then all of a sudden, no, it doesn't. And I wanted. But
how is that possible when I actually say on the stream live, I need to check if Mendy came on for a 1 pointer? You had people in the chat going, oh, I can't even remember the top of my head now, but people just don't listen. They don't listen. I specifically
I think you don't just take it to the fact that we were looking at it, and I will say we, because I myself personally was thinking, I don't really care if Steve-O's like proper gonna burst in anxiety, because all I care about is the entertainment factor of the storytelling, the narrative of Steve-O literally like panicking. And then, and of course, I mean, 99.9% of people would have done what you've done. I mean, I wouldn't expect you to go through the whole of match and day. Well, it would have actually been to the end of the actual. Well, you would have known if Mendy came on, didn't you? When was the City game?
No, I didn't, because I don't look when you're doing this match of the day challenge or whatever.
Oh, they don't necessarily show the substitutions, do they?
No, they do, but I'm not looking at it, am I? I'm not like specifically going, oh, who did they bring on? Right,
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
okay. No, it's fair enough. No, I completely understand it from your point of view.
But then when Lundstrom scored the second goal, I'm thinking, all that's going through my mind is, but everybody owns him. Like, I don't understand this. Like, in fact, I'll get onto that in a second, actually. So let's just quickly for a second here. When I say everybody owns him, I'm talking about our cash money. I couldn't care less about the. I've said this for about 10 years. Yeah. I couldn't give two cahoots about the overall rank. If it means that I win a cash mini league and I end up 6 millionth in the world, brilliant. I've won a cash mini league. I couldn't care less about the overall ranks, so long as I win more to the point, get into the top 4 cash players. Game said 38% of people own Lundstrom. I would put a random guess that in our cash mini league, the Elite FPL one, I would say 70-80% own Lundstrom, if not higher. Mm-hmm. Now, whether he played or was first sub, whether he came on or not, I couldn't give a crap. We'll keep it a crap, shall we? I couldn't care less. The point being is that I'm just looking at it going, well, so what? It doesn't matter. All I'm thinking about now is, did Mopay and Martial do anything? Because even when I check my phone and I'm like,
let's just bring your team up. Sorry, chat. I've got my team up here. I'm going to bring up Steve-O's team here because Steve-O's actually had, I think, it's his best game week.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Of the season.
Let me get on with this, right? But it doesn't matter because last season, game weeks
have you gained rank in the cash league? Yes, you have. Have you gained rank in the Torbe Elite Cash League? Yes, you have. So therefore, you've gained.
Yes, but I argue.
You just said yourself you were like what 50 points or something behind 50.
70.
So okay, 71.
As of yesterday's
right
player that was fourth. I forget who it is
and we're
now.
In game week 11. I mean that's
and we're in game week 11.
It's easily doable.
And don't get me wrong. When I checked all this, and now you've just revealed live as to where I am specifically, it's kind of like, okay, fair enough. But reality is this: is that am I happy with my game week score? Well, obviously, yeah, I am. But it's more the disappointment that my two differentials have done nothing. And also the fact that, as the usual story, and this is between you and I, Ramsdale and Rico get you a double flaming clean sheet, all that rubbish. And it cancels everything out. And it doesn't matter whether I'm now 70 odd points off fourth and it's game week 11, etc., etc. The teams above me are all going to have virtually the same players. For example, I don't have a clue at the moment, but I would argue again, most will have Matt Ryan, Sayuncu, Alexander-Arnold, Lundstrom, Mason Mount, De Bruyne, Mane, Abraham, and maybe not Aguero, but...
Can you see, though, from a point of view that someone that maybe got 40 points this game week,
I couldn't care less about them. Because,
but can you no? But let me finish what I'm saying. Can you see from the point of view of someone that maybe have had a dreadful game week?
All right, I'll give you someone that had.
Can you see from their point of view that you may be acting a little bit?
Yeah, but they're looking at it from an overall rank. I couldn't care less about overall rank. I care about the Cash Mini League. Don't worry about the overall rank. If you don't like what I'm saying, clear off. I'm being serious. I don't care, right? Because the people in the chat really do annoy me. Because the amount of crap that they come out with saying that you make bad decisions. What on earth are you talking about, right? Shut up.
So carry on. So carry on saying. So your point being now then.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about someone that had a bad game week, shall we? Bring up Vince Chapman's team. Vince Chapman, he's, I don't know, somewhere like 70th, 60th, 70th, whatever, between there. Now, Vince, right, he triple captained Sterling, right, and he's got Lundstrom on the bench and he ain't going to come on.
Right. Okay, there you go. We'll go him up.
Right. Horrific. That's awful. But I'm doing this from a selfish point of view. And if I'm wanting to catch players above me and stuff, I need my differentials to do something. And they've done absolutely nothing. It's all been cancelled out. They've done nothing in Mopay and Martial. I mean, Showman the Mane, who was top and now second. The reality is that he needs to do something with his gambles to make sure that he either stays on top or stays ahead of the curve or whatever. And unfortunately for him, and just like in my case, they didn't pay off, And reality is that to do well in a cash mini league, you need differentials and logical ones that will pay off. And reality is that I'm still going to be, whatever it is, between 50 and 70 points off fourth spot. And for people to say to me, well, I only got 40 points, and what's that got to do with me? I couldn't care less.
You've gained ground in the cash league, though. That's the point, Steve-O. I'd understand this reaction if you'd literally done, I know you lost 20 or 30 places, but you're actually going up. You're getting a green arrow in not only the both cash leagues you're in, and I think I just think you need to kind of see it in the bigger picture of this, and the bigger picture is that you're still within touching distance. You're still within a realistic. You've still got a realistic prospect of catching that amount of points, and you don't need to overreact in this sort of way. And that's just
I'm not overreacting. What I'm making the point is that.
Well, I don't know. I call it telling chat to shut up and go and watch other. I mean, at the end of the day, you're entitled to your opinion, but they're also entitled to their opinion.
No, they are entitled to their opinion, but the way they come across as if like this one individual saying that I made bad decisions. I'll make this point now.
As well as I do, is about 5 or 6 people out of 200 people that may be saying things that are irritating you. So let's not kind of tar everybody with the same brush.
No, I'm not tarring everybody in the same brush. I am referring to maybe up to about 10 people, whatever. But for instance, let's just take for today for an example, right? An individual said yesterday that basically not playing Lundstrom was madness. Well, that's funny, because if Lundstrom blanked yesterday and Soyuncu did what he did today, and I benched Soyuncu and played Lundstrom, that same individual will say, why did you bench Soyuncu and why did you play Lundstrom?
This is the internet, Steve-O, and people do this to get a reaction, and guess what? You're giving them one, and I wouldn't even bother. I wouldn't even bother entertaining the fact that someone's got to you, because at the end of the day, it is a game. You're doing okay. I mean, you're still, like I said, you're still getting a green arrow this week. Just take it as a good game week, because that's what it is.
It is. It is a good game week. I'm just saying that I'd be more happier if my differentials. I'd be more happier if Martial and Mopé got, I don't know, the 14 and the 21 points than Lundstrom and Soyuncu, because my differentials would have done something. That's all I'm saying. It's just the fact that the players that scored big, majority of people own. So it doesn't mean anything. Now, someone made a point yesterday that it's all about different combinations there. I get that. And people like Vince Chapman or whatever, they didn't play Lundstrom. I fully get that. But in my position or whatever, I've played these players and stuff. They've got me the points wherever by pure luck, I'm getting Lundstrom off the bench. And it's just pure luck. But most people have Lundstrom playing in the first place. And when tomorrow comes, and if we do a stream tomorrow evening reflecting over the league and everything, it will be fascinating to see how it is all lined up regarding how many points I am off Fourth, how many points I'm off. I think it is 25.
You're 25 behind me, so let's just work it out. So I'm in the Torbet Elite Cash League. I'm now going to be 34 points off top, and only 11 points behind Fourth. So you'll be 30. So you'll be 36 points away from the cash prize in the Torbet Elite, and you'll be, like you said, what was it? 54, 60, 70, 75 points behind fourth place in the main cash league, in the challenge league. I want to speak about FPL the Defender, who took a minus 28.
What?
A minus 28 this week.
Why?
He's currently going to be
probably still beating me.
He took a minus 28, and where is he now? I'm going to find it. Sorry, give me a second.
Well, this is fascinating.
Here we go. So he took a minus 28, and he got 94 points. He used a bench boost, and on his bench he had Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, and David Silva with Henderson as well.
Where is he in the league?
In the...
As in now,
he's 87th last night, but yeah, he's still going to be quite down. But the point being, we've had some crazy results this week. But then also, Steve, you've also got your triple captain as well. Let's not forget that. So again, one triple captain away from overtaking me and gaining a good rank.
Yeah, but we all know that as we keep banging on about the fact that the triple captaincy is going to be used on a player that everybody's going to be captaining anyway. It
depends, doesn't it? It depends.
Get stuffed. At the end of the day, if Liverpool have a double game week versus, I keep saying this, West Ham and Brighton, we're all going to put the triple captaincy on the Salah or Mane. It's a fact.
Well, I've got some good news. I'm going to be top of the hosts and mods league. There we go. It's a bit of good news.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. No, sorry. So I'm not going to be top of the host and mods league. I'm going to be fifth. I'm going to be fifth in the host and mods league. No, I'm going to be top of the members league. Sorry, the members league. I'm going to be
the members league.
Yeah. The members league. There you go. So it started the point scoring only started this game week. So there you go. Right. So
hold on a minute. Let me just address the second point that I want to get into, which is people saying about Steve-O makes bad decisions, etc., etc. Reality is this: if we look at my team from this week, and I said it in my members only podcast earlier, do you really think I'm going to play Lundstrom over Mendy and Alexander-Arnold, Mason Mount, Martial, De Bruyne, Mane, Abraham, Moba? Yeah, exactly. But this
you don't
idiot,
need to justify it
who's
to
a
anybody.
regular, by the way. This isn't just some casual.
One guy's really got your back up, and I think you should just let it go now. To be honest with you, just chill. I mean, honestly, mate, it could have been a lot worse. And
it could have been. And I'm telling you now, for anybody that didn't watch, Jason made a point yesterday that I don't know what he would do if Mendy came on for 1 point or whatever. I would have done all this stuff, and I would not have played this game, and I would have just left it on a ghost team. I wouldn't have touched it, because if that had happened, it just something in the FPL gods are just telling me, don't even bother playing this game. Don't even bother. It's a waste of time, because it's just same as last year. It's just nothing I could do in this case to catch Jason. This year, it's all ifs and buts, isn't it? I can't be bothered to go down that route, but this game is just pure luck at the moment. Let's talk about your team, shall we?
Yeah, let's just talk about So we're going to go through Steve-O's team for audio reasons, because people obviously are listening back to this on audio. Matt Ryan in goal, getting Steve-O a clean sheet. So a positive there for Matt Ryan. And then we've got Soyuncu, obviously Soyuncu scoring a goal today, going to pick up bonus points, bonus 3. 14 points from him. Alexander-Arnold, Mendy didn't play, so he's got Lundstrom coming on for Mendy, 21-point haul. Now, the midfield, this is where the points kind of dry up a little bit, but again, it doesn't matter because his defence and his attack have returned him the points that he needed. Mason Mount, Martial, De Bruyne not really doing anything, but then again, highly owned players. Steve-O's talking about highly owned players, didn't do anything. Martial being a heavily transferred in player this past game week as well. Mane getting points, 12 points. People sticking on to Salah. It'd be interesting to see if they eventually get off of that Salah faith. That blind faith that people hold with Salah. Will it start to kind of fizzle out now? Abraham picking up 12 points. Mupai, the transfer in. Again, it's a differential. Yes, he blanked, but then Aguero, his captain, got him a goal. And was it a goal or was it an assist? It was a goal, wasn't it? It was a goal, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a goal. There we go. So, yeah, it's pretty good. He's going to end up with 91 points all out, going up to 58th place in the Cash Mini League. Let's move on to my team. I'm currently on 96 minus 4, 92. 92 points. Ramsdale in goal, picking up a clean sheet and bonus points as well. He also got save, which was quite a miraculous save points as well. 1 save point. Lundstrom, Soyuncu and Rico, my back 3, all picking up points. The mega haul come from Lundstrom, as we've just spoken about. Mason Mount and David Silva picking up 1 point apiece, which was obviously very disappointing. David Silva could be injured, now could have a big problem, especially the fact I've got Matip in my team. Fixtures next week, not looking good. We've got De Bruyne picking up 2 points, irritating for a lot of owners. Mane with the point haul that I didn't even consider even vice-captaining Mane. Abraham with again the same as Steve-O, 12 points, Vardy 6, and I'm really glad that Vardy scored. I really am. And then my captain Aguero doubling up 6 to 12. There we go. On the bench, Hudson-Odoi, and again the dilemma: what do we do with Hudson-Odoi? That is the question. Do we get rid of? I've got quite a few fires to put out in my team. I've got David Silva, which is a problem, Hudson-Odoi, and now Matip. Talking of
your team, though, realistically, if Matip was fit, who would you have started him ahead of, Soyuncu or Lundstrom or Rico? Which one of those three?
I would have used
Rico.
No. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I would have gone ahead of Rico. Yeah, because I wouldn't have doubled up. I wouldn't have doubled up with Bournemouth. I wouldn't have, honestly. Yeah, I preferred.
What is your thoughts on this whole Bournemouth keeping clean sheets? I mean, like I said last night, you owe him a flaming. I don't know what you've done, but Eddie,
I prayed to the FPL god, Steve-O. Every night, I make a sacrifice, a donut. I sacrifice a donut every night to the FPL gods, and believe you me, I ate a lot of donuts on Saturday. I am not gonna sit here and try to justify me bringing in Ramsdale when it was. I even said it myself. I was priced out of Ryan. I was priced out of a 4 point. Because Ryan had gone up to 4.7, I believe. Pope had gone up to 4.6. Yeah. So I thought, right, I'll go with Ramsdale. I like the look of Ramsdale. I did like the look. I could have chosen other goalkeepers. Could have gone with Gazzaniga, or I could have gone elsewhere. But no, I did like the look of Ramsdale. But did I in a million years think he was going to get me 3 clean sheets? No. So I consider myself to be very fortunate about that. I do, but that's I think Rico is always going to be in my team anyway. I just but Ramsdale, I think I've been pretty jammy on that one, and it was only because of the situation I've put myself in with the cash that I've spent up front and in midfield that I've had to kind of go with the budget and the best of the budget, and those are Lundstram, Rico, in the situation that I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just amazes me. Legitimately amazes me that this has happened. But
again, Steve, like you said, they're owned by so many people. They're either getting them come off
Ramsdale.
Well, no, I'm talking about Lundstram and Rico in this situation. Yeah. Again, the Lundstram and Rico. I mean, there are in a lot of teams in the top 10,000, and a lot of teams in the top 500,000. To be honest with you. And it's, again, the differentials. David Silva was my differential. What
were you thinking when he was taken off?
Well, what can you do? I mean, I just thought while Aguero's still on the pitch, he's my captain. I just hope to God that Aguero can get onto an end of Kevin De Bruyne a pass or something like that. And fortunately, he did get a goal, which is obviously sweetened it a little bit. I got 96 points minus 4. That's the only points I got. So yes, let's move. So just quickly, so just finishing off about what happened today. We did talk about the game, Everton and Spurs. We'll just confirm that Tosin got the goal. Ali also got the goal for Spurs. I don't remember you saying that. And Son with the assist, but that red card kind of cancelled that out. And Digne with an assist. Digne, a player that a lot of people have got rid of quite some time ago. But yeah, it's Steve, great score, Jason. What are the guys in chat saying? Anyway, let's say hello to some of the guys in chat. We've got Gravy Dave here, we've got Staz here, we've got Mavid.
Oh, there are people watching, are there?
Yeah, we've got people watching. Jerry Swanee, Jash Thakar, we've got Mohit Tiwari in chat. Hello to you guys. Chelsea defence is a waste, says Jerry Swanee. Oh dear, well that's my Tamori transfer out the window then. Is 600 points decent at the moment? Yes, it's okay. It's okay, Tobias. It's okay. It's decent. It's game week 11. Okay, this is not game week 32. I mean, this is game week 11. You've got plenty of time and plenty of fixtures to pull those points back. Anyone that got 70 or more points this game week is had a great game week. I had Otamendi come on in the 90th minute, and I had Dunk and Soinchu on the bench. JB, I've read and heard of a lot of people that have had really bad luck with Otamendi with blocking Lundstram points coming on. So yeah. Hello Nick. Hello Shano. Yeah. So let's get ready to talk. And now I think it's probably appropriate that this evening we have callers come on to the show. Not immediately. We'll have a bit of a chat first, but this is just going out there now. I want to speak to callers that have significant points to make about this game week. And they want to get things off their chest. They want to, like Steve, they want to vent, how the story of their game week. I don't want a caller just come up saying this is my score. Let me know how you think I did. That's not content. So have a think about it before we come on air. But Steve-O, I just want to say that we are all passionate FPL players, and it's a game. It's a game of emotional roller coaster. It's like it's ups and downs. You have a lot of ups, you have a lot of downs, and this season, believe you me, we've both experienced downs, and I think that I'm 25 points above you probably because I've done stupid. I mean, some of the things I've done, I don't deserve to be above you, to be honest with you. I'm going to go that far and say it. I did minus 16 after a wild card, for God's sake. I play my captain. I make wild transfers, minus 4s pretty much every week, minus 8s, and it's just, again, it's the game. It's just the way the game is.
A very nice comment from Dre Zara there saying, I've said before, proud of Stephen and Jason not holding back opinions. Thank you both for your hard work and dedication to this channel. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful comment there. At the end of the day, it's real. This is what a cash when cash is at stake. How much money
Steve-O doesn't put on a personality on stream, put it that way. Hi guys, what are we thinking about City and Liverpool assets going into next week? Well, we'll talk about it on Thursday, but I think a lot of people are going to be... I don't know. I think there's going to be a high score. I think there's going to be goals in that game, so I don't think you need to worry too much about that. I really don't. It's gonna ban that guy. Anyway, Steve, you got any final things to say before we start inviting people on?
Yeah, get Fast Air on.
Right.
If Fast Air wants to come on air, I'll be more than happy to talk to you, have a conversation with you. Be more than happy to, because you've been on air before. I'd like to get you live on air because apparently you want to get an argument. But let's get on Charlie.
Let's first of all get Charlie on. Charlie, good evening. How are you doing today?
Happy birthday.
Evening, lads. Yeah. Cheers, Steve-O.
Happy birthday, Charlie. How you doing,
Chase.
mate?
Yeah,
good,
rosé,
thanks.
Jason.
I'm not having any rosé, mate. I've had my fair share. Thank you very much. I've had my fair share. But we've been talking about the game week. We've been talking about the amount of points that we've seen people on. How's your game week been?
Well, basically, Lundstrom saved me off the bench for Mendy.
Right,
68 points.
Let me just get your team up here.
You must be You must be so disappointed. Sterling blank.
Yeah, tell me about it. Sterling, De Bruyne, Wilson again. Very frustrating. He's gone for me. Coming up this week. The most annoying thing. It's sort of annoying and good in the same way because I was thinking of either doing Wilson out for Jimenez or obviously Mendy in for Otamendi. So I'm basically glad that I done Mendy in for Otamendi because I would have started Otamendi.
Oh yeah.
So Lundstrom wouldn't have come off the bench.
Yeah. So it's worked out for you. I still think the Callum Wilson move to Jimenez is gold.
Yeah.
I was literally thinking of doing it this week, but I done Mendy instead. But I'm definitely doing it next week. Maybe a free hit.
Wow, really? You would do a free hit?
Yeah, I think the Man City Liverpool game would be like it was last year, and it'd be like 1-1. It'd be like
2-1 either way.
Yeah, something like that.
In fact, the history suggesting it's going to be like 1-1, 2-1 to Liverpool. So there we are.
Yeah.
There's a bit of an.
What's the total points you got? Sorry,
68 with Lundstrom coming off.
68 above average.
So 89 then.
Bruno and head to head as well, which is nice.
Very nice, very nice. What did you think of the games overall over the weekend as a whole? Really, the results.
It was just crazy. It was crazy.
What stood out for you?
Probably the fact that I was biting my nails the whole game because I seen Lundstrom got 2 goals and he was on my bench.
Did you think like half time Pep made the took off David Silva? Did you think that Mendy had a chance of coming on?
Definitely. I thought he would have been his first
attacking minded player.
Yeah,
exactly. To get back into the game.
I thought he was going to be the first one on. I thought he would have been straight on for Angelino maybe or like David Silva, but luckily he didn't. But yeah, there was some like Liverpool, Man City, especially Man City, like the fact that everyone was obviously thinking that it was going to be a 4-5-0, and it was just I was just there like, what is going on? And then obviously it finished 2-1, and obviously Aguero got the goal, but De Bruyne and Sterling just nothing. Man City were terrible, weren't they? So
they weren't flowing as well as they are.
Yeah.
I mean, and in that game against Southampton, we were all kind of looking at some people like triple captained, who was it? Sorry, it was Vince Chapman.
Penguin.
Vince Chapman.
Penguin.
Yeah, and Penguin. It's just one of those seasons. I think Steve-O said, was it in the Thursday preview, Steve-O, that before this game week, I'm 99 points.
Oh yeah, you're 99 points ahead of. The points total that you had this time last season is 99 points more than number one as of the other day
in the world.
Yeah. I remember you said that. Yeah,
that's
crazy.
That's mind-boggling, and again, it's I've seen on forums, and I've seen it on, in different areas of the internet, that ghost teams in cash leagues and in mini leagues all over the country and all over the world have kind of outscored passionate FPL teams who've been making
crazy,
transfers,
isn't it?
and it's just it is one of those seasons where you just think, am I looking at it so hard that I'm completely missing the true? I mean, there isn't a template, is there? Really?
No,
there's not really a template. And
it's mainly differentials, to be honest. Doing well this season.
And I think
literally,
I think people will now. This game week 12 is going to be a very interesting game week, because we're going to see a lot of people with 3 Man City, a lot of people with 2, maybe 3 Liverpool. What are they going to do? Are they going to have they got 2 transfers to use to take out? Are they going to rely on their bench? Are they going to play all 6 against each other? This is a very interesting game week 12.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be crazy, because I put Mendy in thinking, Pep's surely going to start him, but he started the same 2 fullbacks that played in the cup, and then so next week I got Mendy, I got De Bruyne, Sterling, Trent, and Van Dijk. So I'm hoping for I don't even know what to think.
Have you worked out whereabouts you're going to fall in terms of the cash league and the overall rank?
Rank, my rank went down by like 100k yesterday, because obviously today I had
Vardy score.
Vardy, Maddison, and obviously the Lundstrom points are going to be coming on. So I think 10th, 11th, but I'm still happy, really. I'm still happy. Like you said, there's ages to go yet.
Yeah.
Anything can happen, but I just hope I can, keep being steady and hopefully finish in the top 4 of the Cash Mini League.
No, I mean, you're still within arm's distance of it, so absolutely got to keep looking forward. It's a marathon, not a sprint, as they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, Charlie, I think, this is the Sunday surgery. What is your thoughts with the players that you've got in game week 12? Are you going to be playing all of your? Silly question. Are you going to be keeping all of your City, Liverpool? Are you going to be transferring one of them out, perhaps?
I don't know. It's going to be one of them weeks. I'm not sure. I was thinking of doing, obviously, Wilson out for Jimenez. But obviously now you look at it, it's the Liverpool Man City game. It's just, I don't know. I'm going to have to think long and hard about what I'm going to do. Whether I do like a -4.
I honestly wouldn't. I honestly wouldn't be spending points to get out those sort of players. That's my opinion, Steve-O.
So I didn't actually hear the question. I was doing some research.
Spending points getting rid of City and Liverpool players ahead of the clash between
No. That's mad. No, I wouldn't bother about that.
But there are going to be people doing it, though.
Good.
Yeah, best of luck. If you take a -4 to take out... Well, who are you going to take out for -4? Let's be honest.
Well, I was going to take out Van Dijk anyway.
No.
But I don't know what I'm going to do. I might do free hit and see if it pays off.
Do it.
Maybe.
Well,
it's a rival.
I wouldn't suggest doing that, but Steve, I want you to. No, but Charlie, I think you pretty much have hit the nail on the head when it comes to Callum Wilson to Jimenez. That's what I'd be looking at doing over the next few weeks. But yeah, other than that, you pretty much. I think, like myself, I haven't got the defenders in Liverpool, but certainly like myself with the Man City attackers and stuff like that, I'm just going to play them.
I might as well just. It's just going to be one of those weeks.
I'm not going to get rid of him, and maybe the Matip injury is a blessing for me. Maybe, who knows? It may turn out to be. Steve will be shaking his head if Trent Alexander-Arnold doesn't get anything in that game. I'm sure the amount of crosses he pumps into the box.
It's been frustrating, hasn't it, Trent?
When I was watching the game last night on Match of the Day, and you just see everything. Every highlight is Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'm just like, how has this guy not got more returns this season?
Robbo was like, no way. Yeah.
But no, crazy. Charlie, happy birthday. Any final thoughts?
Yeah,
cheers. Just keep up the good work, lads. It's been quality.
No, thank you. All the best, buddy. We'll speak soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Les. Bye.
That's Charlie. Steve, you probably don't care, but have you got any idea where I'm going to fall in the terms of the overall rank?
Fall?
Yeah, where I'm going to end up.
Where were you last night?
Just over 1 million. 1.1. Oh, hang on. Last night, that was a good question. Well, I started the game week at 1 million something and something.
And you had Sunchu and Vardy today. That's 11, 17 points ish. 20 points, isn't it, that you got today? I reckon you're probably going to end up about 700,000.
Nope. You won't believe this.
Is it higher?
300,000, give or take 1 or 2,000. 302,000.
Blimey. So
that's the point, though. You're 25 points behind me. I know you don't care about overall rank, but it's still so congested at the moment in the top 1 million. It's unbelievable. It really, really, really is.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment on screen, I am seriously thinking of contemplating doing a -4 to get rid of Aguero ahead of the Liverpool game.
Who do you bring in though? Jimenez?
No, it'd be Jamie Vardy and Jimenez in for Aguero and Mopé. So, I love that move. I'd probably captain Vardy as well. I'd have to look at the history and everything.
I was honest with you. I did not like the Martial Mopé move. I think that was a little bit knee jerk. Personally, that's just my opinion. I like the thought process between Aguero, Vardy in, and then Mopé.
You say that Mopé up against Norwich, conceding goals for fun at the moment. You know, Mopé in decent form. I mean, our mate Shomon Amane.
I just don't trust Brighton. I don't.
They've been scoring quite well. They've scored 6 goals in the last 2.
My overall points is Tobias. My overall points is 613. Anyway, let's move on to the next caller. We've got, I think it's a new caller.
Brilliant.
Give me the cruise. Give me the cruise. Good evening. How you doing?
Hi there, guys. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. How's your game week been?
I put it in the chat in the, I think it's Rate My Team.
Oh, you put it in the Rate My Team. Well, just to let you know, anyone coming on the show, could you please put it in the team screenshots channel just above the waiting room? Don't worry, I'll find it. Do you know when you posted it?
It was probably about 6 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago.
Okay, should be able to find. Oh yeah, that's fine. It's just sometimes we get a lot of spam messages in that channel. So you got 50.
Who do you
points.
support? Give me the cruise.
I don't actually. I'm a Maverick. I just sort of watch teams and enjoy it, but I don't really have a team.
Oh, okay. And why do you play fantasy football then?
My work league, and I didn't actually watch football before it, and I got into it, and I just loved the stats, so I play it quite a lot now. And
how well are you doing this season overall, rank-wise?
I'm at 1.8 mil, but okay. I was actually in hospital for a week or 2 at the beginning, so I checked in and it wasn't doing very well.
Good night, Yash. Good night, Yash. I just want to say sorry.
3 Man United players. What makes you put faith into United?
I actually think they're not that expensive at the moment. And I think because Rashford is just, if anything happens in the game, he'll get max bonus. And he often gets a very easy penalty. And his next 10 games, there's only a couple that I would concede being super difficult. And I don't rate Manchester that much, but I just think that it's a decent way of getting extra points that most of the top template teams won't, without being a bit too reckless and putting 11 mil on something that I don't trust.
You must have been gutted about Sterling blanking yesterday and the actual result itself being only 2-1. Last gasp winner.
It was. I mean, to be honest, I'm not that shocked. I'm kind of backing everyone who stuck with Aguero because he did pull out, and a lot of people I think he, had barely anyone backing him for captaincy, so acted out as a bit of a differential this week.
I mean, looking overall at your team here, it's pretty solid. What made you go with Alonso? You must be a bit disappointed he didn't play yesterday.
Yeah, it was totally just piggybacking off last season because he actually did really well for me. I got him just before. He'd got nothing before I'd gotten him. So I think I got 14 points, 8 points, 7 points, 5 points. And he got pulled off at 61 minutes, and then they lost a clean sheet. So I think that was last week. So he got an extra clean sheet. So he's done really well for me. But he's actually out of my team now.
Oh, really? Who have you brought in?
I brought in Sorenchu, and I'm going to bring in TAA after this City fixture.
Oh, really? What makes you want to bring in Trent Alexander-Arnold for 7.3 or whatever he is?
Sorry, it's not very good.
No, that's all right. What's making you bring in Trent Alexander-Arnold for that amount of money?
Well, I think he's got, like, in terms of expected assists, on par with De Bruyne, and he is 7 mil, and I've kind of just not had him the whole beginning of the season. I expect him to get punished, and I can just imagine me being a bit jammy, getting on him, and then he will start producing. I think all of the stats are under there. Like, under his performance, he is the standout defender out of every defender in the whole league. He's playing for the best team, or joint best team, and he's massively underperformed compared to a lot of them. So I think I'll jump on him now whilst his fixtures are alright, and he is only 7 mil, and I've got the money, so I think it's a decent Alonso move.
Say again, sorry, Steve.
I was just saying, I'm hoping he is right.
Well, I'm nice to have you on the show. Give me the quiz. This is the first time you've been on the show.
Yeah, I've actually sort of skulked a lot since before this season. So I caught you at the end of the summer.
Oh wow!
And I've listened to your stuff, and I think you guys just do really long streams, which is nice because you can just sort of tune in and just sit in the background and listen. And I've seen you guys get more and more momentum this year. Which is good. So I reckon next season.
Steve-O may have upset a few people tonight, so no, I'm joking.
Stuff him.
Yeah, to be honest, like Steve-O said, if you don't like it, I mean, if you want to just see a canned presenter just giving a smiley face and talking to you about FPL, then you're not in the right place, I'm afraid.
Well, I did laugh when he said that 77 wasn't a good score for this week. I hold my my tongue.
I'm sure a few days of cooling off would be fine. But in all seriousness, no, it's great that you're here. It's great that you're talking to us about your team. A few comments about your Man United. Now, I'm a Man United fan. You may or may not know that. The triple up of Man United in FPL is very brave because although their fixtures are very nice and enticing, unfortunately Manchester United are in this position where they just don't seem to be winning games, and they don't seem to be scoring many goals. And the goals they are scoring are coming from penalties, which they're even not always converting. So you've got risk with Man United, and a lot of FPL managers don't like any risk. Risk can come in a multitude of ways. Risk could be players not guaranteed minutes. It could be players likely to be injury prone. But in this sense, risk is purely in the fact that Man United can't keep clean sheets or aren't very reliable at the moment with keeping clean sheets. So Wan-Bissaka, even though he is a standout right back, that I think he's one of the best, if not the best, right back in the league, unfortunately, he's playing for a Man United team that are exposing their defence and are leaking goals. And the David De Gea that isn't world class at the moment. Martial is a great player, but when his head goes down, and he can be quite lethargic. I think he is the spark that United need, but it's still a wait and see on him for myself and for a lot of FPL managers. So either you're getting on them early. Now this is a key thing, give me the cruise, because like I said, United have got a good run of fixtures, and all it takes is a good run of results, and you'll start scoring big points. Unfortunately, it's when you're trying to forecast your team and how they're going to do. Not many people are looking at United at the moment. Maybe one of Martial and Rashford, but getting 2 in and Wan-Bissaka is very brave, and I hope that they do well for you. And if they do, please come on the show and let me know.
I will do. And I think, to be honest, I actually, if I was going to say any of them didn't make sense, I'd probably say Rashford, just because he is quite expensive. But
who would you rather have out of Jimenez and Rashford? That's a good point.
I'd rather. I mean, no price, definitely Rashford.
Really?
I think he's playing. Yeah, I think he is probably a better player, and he's playing for a team that when at
Yeah,
home.
but FPL, there's a difference between a better player in terms of football and then also an FPL player, which I'm sorry, but Jimenez is got just as good fixtures coming up, and he is, in my opinion, a better FPL asset. I really do. I think that.
I think
Club bias.
there's not much in it, and I think the squad depth of Man United means that they can actually deal with other competitions like Europa, whereas Wolves don't really, they are struggling quite obviously, and they've picked up a bit of form, but I think United, they've got that sort of reservoir of players that they can just dip into if they need to, like the youth, and there is quite a lot of squad depth, midfield and defence. I don't think Wolves have that. Like for instance, Bolly being out, I think means that they don't have a decent substitute for him, and I think, to be honest, there's not much in it, and I think the benefit of both is that they're the most likely to get the bonus points in their teams. So they are both good.
That's a fair shout. I mean, ultimately, you've tripled up on Man United, something that I wouldn't, even the most heartened Man United supporter who plays FPL seriously, I don't think you'll find many that have tripled up on Man United. However, like I said, you could be ahead of the hauls that are coming, and that is the key. When you play FPL, you don't want to be reacting. You don't want to be reacting to point hauls. You want to be ahead, proactive. This could either be something that's proactive for you, or it could be a disaster. I hope it's proactive.
I think with actually, to be honest, I feel like I got a bit unlucky on the whole proactive side because against Norwich they got 3-1, but both Rashford and Martial got penalties they missed, and to be honest, they weren't fantastic, but they were on target, fairly pacey penalties. I think they were just a bit mixture of luck and amazing saves for the Norwich goalie. I've forgotten his name, but Tim Krul. On any other day, I think both of those have gone in, and I'd have actually had a massive differential on both of them. There'd have been sort of 18 points each or whatever, and I think I actually got a bit unlucky that they both missed pens. And but to be honest, yeah, I get what you're saying though. I think it is a bit of a risk, and to be honest, the whole Wan-Bissaka thing, I've just had him in, and I've had bigger fires to get put out, and if I had to pick again, I probably wouldn't put him in, but I would put in Martial and Rashford at the moment, just because I think I don't want 3, 11, 12 million pound players and like a weak team. I'd rather actually just have Martial and Rashford in. But
the point being is there are players that are lower price points that are better FPL assets at the moment.
Who do you think's better than Rashford? I agree with Rashford, but who do you think's better than Martial?
At the moment, Pulisic?
No, I honestly don't think he's a better option.
Did you watch the Chelsea game?
I watched both the last 2 weeks.
I think he's an absolute. I think he's a top player. I really do. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and I think he's going to take that spot away from Hudson-Odoi, and I really would love to have him in my team.
I think you're right. He is going to take it away from Hudson-Odoi, probably, and then Hudson-Odoi will probably play the League Cups and things. But I think Martial,
before the injury, David Silva was also. I would say David Silva above Martial as well.
David Silva, to be fair, this season is the only season I've ever thought he would be a good option.
He was decent last year.
He was, but if you had him in your team for a month, he might only play 2 matches.
I mean, this is the thing that we're going on here and now, and David Silva has been in form, and Martial's just coming back. Martial's coming back, and again, we're working with the unknowns really with Martial at the moment. He's not consistent enough, in my opinion, to be up there as a top consideration. That's just my opinion.
Well, last season I finished in top 200k, and I actually got on Rashford and I got on Martial.
Oh yeah, Martial has bursts. He has bursts where he scores.
And I had him. Yeah. I had him at the beginning of the season as well, and he got my first week. I got over 100 points, and he was part of that. And then the second I saw he was injured, didn't even. A lot of people were waiting for that arrow to go away. That sign to go away, but I just got rid of him because I know that they're not going to put him straight back in because he's so injury prone. And the second he was fit again against Norwich, I put him in, and he could have easily gotten 2 goals. And Rashford as well could have easily gotten 3.
Give me the cruise. I am certainly not telling you that you've made a mistake. I'm just trying to give you my point of view. No, but the thing is, like I said, come back on the show. Game week 12. Come back on the show. I want to hear from you.
Yeah, sounds good. So that's what, 3 weeks from now or 2 weeks? Oh, sorry, next week. Yeah,
next weekend. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
No. Cheers. Thank you for coming on. I much appreciate
Peace.
getting new callers. Thank you. Speak soon.
See you guys. Bye.
Cheers.
Amazing. And this is, I don't care what anyone has to say. I like to hear people who've got different opinions. I much appreciate that more than people coming on with the same story about the same players and about this and that. And I like to hear from people, especially people that maybe don't follow. Well, like he said, he doesn't follow a specific Premier League team. He plays the game purely for the stats and for the enjoyment point of view. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I was looking at, let's just say, for example, you were just to build a team of the highest scoring players as of now. So you could stick in, for example, I was playing around with it, Ramsdale in goal. Like I said, it'd be the top 5 defenders, top 4 midfielders, and the top 3 strikers, obviously. I was like over by 16 million. Well, if you just downgraded a couple of players here or there, you're getting players which are actually playing for pretty decent teams and, as just mentioned, are in good form. So even if you're a casual player at the moment, you don't even need any statistics or all that rubbish, to be honest with you. Just pick quite literally the best performing players. I mean, have you thought about...
At this point, you might just click auto-select.
Yes, yeah. Have you thought about potentially doubling up on Sheffield United defence?
Yes. I have thought about it. Especially for this week, for game week 12, because of the Matip injury, and the fixtures are not looking great for my back three. I must admit. If we just quickly have a look, so I've got Lundstrom away at Tottenham. Well, obviously he'll play Lundstrom. There'll be nobody in their right minds should not play Lundstrom unless they've got better players. Soyuncu home to Arsenal. After seeing him today, I must admit, before seeing him today, I was a little bit like Aubameyang. I can't see Arsenal not scoring. Actually, it doesn't look as bad because the performance today was amazing from Soyuncu.
Well, is it just going on what you just said? You'd be mad not to play Lundstrom. Well, in my case, I'm not going to be playing Mendy away at Liverpool, but then it's down to who do I play out of Rico and Lundstrom. Lundstrom away at Tottenham, Rico away at Newcastle. Well, logic.
Newcastle are scoring pretty well at the moment.
But Bournemouth are conceding.
Yeah, I know.
Tottenham, obviously let's be honest here, a top 4 team, but they have got their issues.
Son suspended.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. But then that means that Lucas Moura may be given a chance, and we all know what he can do. But we're not talking about next week. Let's get on Mr. Anderson.
That's a good point. Yeah, Mr. Anderson, let's bring him in. He's been waiting for quite some time. Mr. Anderson, good evening. You're now on air. I know you got yourself muted and deafened. If you could just unmute yourself, that'd be great. Mr. Anderson, are you there? Okay, we'll hopefully get Mr. Anderson on momentarily. We'll bring Anish in. Good evening, Anish. You're now on air on the Game Week 11 Sunday Surgery. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And you guys?
I'm not too bad, thank you, Anish. How was your Game Week 11?
It was all good until today, pretty much.
So let's read it out your team for the viewers or the audio listeners, because for those of you who don't know, I'm going to do a little plug. And the little plug is that earlier on, I asked a question to the Elite FPL community on Discord and Twitter if it was worth us putting our podcast back on audio platforms like Spotify, iTunes, and syndicated podcasts, basically. And there was a very large response for yes. A lot of people listen to the podcast in the car commutes, in their daily work environments, and apparently having an audio-based platform is easier for them, and they can just download the podcast and listen to it back whenever they want. So apparently that's a thing. I don't do it myself, But yeah, it's now available on all major podcast platforms. Anyway, Anish, got your team up here. What's your overall score?
64 points overall.
64 points. And you're feeling a little bit mixed, I sense, then.
Yeah, just because I had no one playing today.
Yeah, so you've got the picks that I think a lot of people are going to be looking at. You've got Tammy Abraham, who's going to be probably going up in price. Jimenez, a lot of people are going to be transferring in. You've had Lundstrom starting, which is like myself. A lot of people getting jammy points off the bench. No names mentioned. Your captaincy blank was a big one, I think, isn't it? I think that's the difference. I mean, your vice captain was De Bruyne as well. You must be a little bit annoyed about that Man City game.
Yeah, really annoyed actually. But I was reading somewhere that Sterling had about 24 touches in the box and only one shot.
I think that would make. Yeah, he had for one shot, two shots. So I think one was off target. I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I remember watching the highlights. So Steve-O, did you see on the highlights how many shots Sterling had by any chance?
No, but I did see him potentially getting about 2 or 3 assists, and unfortunately it came to nothing because Jesus or Aguero can't put a ball in the back of the net. Simply put, it's just been.
But I don't know whether you guys were aware or not, but Sterling's on 4 yellow cards.
Earlier on today, and it was a case of, well, I don't own Sterling, so I don't have to worry. But I don't think people that own Sterling need to worry either, because we had that issue with, like, the conversation in Reddit was talking about the Diego Costa incident, where he was on 4 yellow cards for like half the season. Hello,
yeah, but it's just the fact that he's playing. It's just the fact that he's playing Liverpool next, and he used to play for them, and I think they're going to ruffle him up basically.
Maybe, yeah, but what's the worst case scenario? He gets a yellow card, he gets suspended the next game, no issue. It's not like his,
yeah, that's true.
But anyway, that's an issue only if it becomes an issue. It's something to consider, of course. If you're looking to transfer him in, it's more of a consideration, I think, more than if you already own him. I think if you already own him, you can't really do much about it. I certainly wouldn't be taking a hit or transferring him out. I mean, who are you going to bring in that's better?
Yeah, that's the case. But I think my biggest annoyance is I had 2 free transfers and I didn't use a single transfer. And I could have taken out Otamendi this week because he didn't even play in the. He didn't play in the midweek cup game, so I thought he would be.
And he
did actually.
Are you
be okay to...
with your 2 free transfers? Are you thinking of maybe doing the sideways move for Salah to Mane? I mean, you could argue it's an upgrade because Salah, you must be disappointed in his returns as of late.
Yeah, I think he's not fully fit from that injury that ankle injury. Because I saw somewhere they were saying that they were taking fluids out of his ankle.
Right, okay.
Or something along those lines. So he wasn't fully fit to play the game either way. So it's probably a good idea to just take him out now. But I think Otamendi's more of a issue for me right now.
You got 2 free transfers. Getting rid of Salah to Mane and Otamendi to whoever. Maybe that could be the move that you do.
Yeah, but I also feel like I want to have 2 free transfers going into the international break.
Right.
Would you not consider going to a possible 3-4-3 involving Vardy in that attack, releasing some money in Salah?
I was thinking of that. Maybe Salah to Pulisic and Connolly to Vardy.
I like that. Yeah.
Something along those lines. But then I still have the Otamendi situation to deal with.
Yeah. Well, you could play 3-4-3, couldn't you?
Yeah, I could play 3-4-3 actually.
Yeah, I personally think that if you're going to do positive transfers, I think that you've got Alexander-Arnold, Lundstrom and Van Dijk that we can rely on. Even though I know that City are playing Liverpool and people are getting their knickers in the twist about that. But the thing is, if you're bringing Jamie Vardy in and Pulisic in, are they going to outscore Connolly and Salah? And I think that's a yes. And
yeah.
And I think they're great transfers.
Yeah, but then from game week 13 onwards, I need to find a way to fit in Mane as well.
Well, do you have to?
I'm not sure because it depends if the Liverpool defence can hold up. Then I think it could be good to go without Liverpool attackers.
Well, I mean, that's a case to consider in the future. You've got a few weeks to.
What evidence have you got though that Liverpool are going to start keeping clean sheets? They just don't seem to be able to.
I mean, there is no evidence to suggest that, but I'm just saying that if it somehow happened that they could keep clean sheets.
Because last season there was an argument that I had where I had double Liverpool defence. I had Trent. This is early on, so I had Trent and Robertson, but there was a reason why I had double Liverpool defence, because they were consistently getting clean sheets. The difference was that Klopp was not trusting Trent Alexander-Arnold as much, and he wasn't the first teamer early on in the season. This was you fast forward a year, and this season people like yourself are doubling up on Liverpool defence, and it's just not working. And I just think that people like yourself are mad. I mean, Charlie, we just had Charlie, Chicken Tikka Masala. He's got Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold as well. And I just look at it and just think, why? Just get one of them gone and upgrade somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a consideration as well. I was thinking of just going quite cheap in the defence and doing Otamendi and Van Dijk to Soyuncu and Saiss.
Saiss, a Wolves defender. Oh my God, no, I wouldn't. I'd rather double up on Sheffield United, although admittedly their fixtures are horrid at the moment. They are the Tottenham away, and then it's God knows who. I've forgotten who it was now, but where are you? Man United.
Sheffield United, yeah.
Yeah, and they won't have Henderson in goal at that point, so maybe he could make a big factor. But I certainly think that you've got a good hand at the moment, Anish, and it's just a case of working out some various combinations, because with 2 free transfers, at the moment,
I mean, I could take a hit or use 2 free transfers, and if I get injuries during the international break, I've got my wild card to use.
Oh, you've still got a wild card? Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Remind us how well you're doing this year overall rank-wise.
At the moment, I'm 162k.
Oh, you're doing really well then. You're doing really, really well at the moment. I would personally get rid of Salah. This is just me. Get rid of Salah. Bring in Mane just for a 1 week. You're still then going to the international break with 2 free transfers, and then take it from there really, and then you can reassess what's.
I would do the Salah to Pulisic, and I'd do the Connolly to Vardy. That's what I would do.
Cheers, lads. Yeah, I think I'm going to ponder over it.
Yeah.
But we've got a Friday night deadline anyway.
We have. Yeah.
So not as much time.
No worries, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anish. Appreciate
Cheers,
it.
thanks for the
Speak soon, dude.
Cheers, Anish. Thank you, pal. Fantasy Football Focus is here. My goodness, I haven't heard from you for a while. Where have you been? I've just seen, Jason, that I was aware, but I didn't realise it was that soon, that the international break after next game week, that's when we have the international break the following game week, so game week 13. We've got a really, really good Saturday FPL live potentially that we could cover, where we've got 6 games in the 3 o'clock kickoffs, and then we've got Man City versus Chelsea. So there could be a chance where I do another. In fact, someone mentioned this. Maybe we both do the Match of the Day challenge at some point in the season.
I'm down for that, man. I am down for that, because do you know what? When I was watching it last night, something clicked in my head. When I started watching it, and you were saying, well, you guys probably aren't enjoying this content whatsoever, because I'm not reading chat and all I'm doing is watching TV and reacting to the TV. I tell you what, it was amazing, because we all knew what had happened.
Yeah.
And I think everyone was thinking, this is great, because like we're seeing you react. And I think if we both did it, let's ask the chat. We've got 285 people at the moment tuned in.
Really?
What do you think of me and Steve-O one game week doing the Match of the Day challenge together? Let us know what you think about that, and we'll maybe do a poll on it, and we'll see how we get on with that. But yeah,
it's funny. Just to quickly add, it's funny because obviously at the start of the stream, before Match of the Days even started, I'm saying about the fact that there are going to be people here potentially who've got Sterling double-digit haul, Aguero may have blanked, various other players doing really well, and then all you are thinking is, nope, you're just going to have to wait for the Mendy and Lundstrom and all this.
We'll have to agree that we're not allowed to check our phones.
Yes, yeah.
And then no one can cry in chat. And then we'll have and a few people in chat are already talking about doing it with us as well, which is pretty insane. So it'll be on a Saturday. There's a lot of games, and we'll literally just be like, right, we're not going to listen to any. Well, I can tell you now for I can tell you 100%. I can avoid the scores 100% because I'm off that day on Saturdays. My partner, she hasn't got she don't care in the world about football, and none of my close friends really care about football, so I ain't got to worry about that.
I'll just address this quick point where everybody's just, again, banging on about the fact that it was all good until I checked my phone. But I didn't see anything other than that.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's it. But we're not going to go over that.
So, anyway,
let's bring on the next caller.
Next caller. Now, Mr. Anderson, hopefully you're going to be back. Mr. Anderson, good evening. You're live on the Sunday Surgery with myself and Steve-O. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Jason, Steve-O?
I'm not too bad. I've had for once in a while, I've actually had a very good game week, and it's seen a very nice green arrow up into the top 300,000. Your team's now in front of me. You've got Nick Pope in goal. Right, so you've got 72 points, first and foremost. You've got Lundstrom in. You've got Tammy Abraham in. You've got Maddison in. You've got Willems in for Newcastle. You've got all scorers. So we're going for your team for the audio listeners. Nick Pope in goal. Back three. It's a 3-4-3 of Alexander-Arnold, Lundstrom, Willems, De Bruyne, Sterling, Mount, Maddison, Firmino, which is interesting, Abraham, and Vardy. Sum up in a sentence game week 11 for you.
I'm just glad City won.
You're glad City won. And why is that? Are you a City fan?
Yeah, I'm a City fan. I was just like, oh my goodness, we're not going to win this game.
What did you think of, well, in that case, what did you think of the last minute, well, the late winner for Sadio Mane? But you were sick, weren't you?
I was like, so close. We could have caught up a few points.
Well, it's what happened last year. I mean, Liverpool were ahead of City last year, and look what happened there. But the thing is, as a City fan, we're talking about the dilemma next week about Man City versus Liverpool. As an owner of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Firmino and Sterling and De Bruyne, are you considering possibly shipping out one of those? But I mean, I certainly would be doing Firmino to Jimenez. I'm a Jimenez fan. I really like Jimenez. What about yourself?
I'm just gonna bench Firmino, but just play 4 defender, or I'm still gonna play Sterling, De Bruyne, and
Who's on? Let's have a quick look. Who's on your bench here? Because I just need to scroll down a little bit. There we go. Soyuncu on the bench. I just. Oh my god. Oh right.
Yeah,
so
I
let's
have 22 points on the bench. So yeah.
Rico and Soyuncu on the bench. Realistically, we heard Steve-O talking about who he would play, and he chose the right combination in his head, and 90% of people would have done the same. Let's be honest. You with a Soyuncu, what made you play Willems over Soyuncu?
I've watched Willems play like the last few weeks, and I think he's great going forward. And it seems like Newcastle's pretty good defensively too, so that's why I played him over Soyuncu. So. And the only thing I thought Soyuncu would get me was like a clean sheet, so I was just like, yeah, maybe gamble on Willems.
That's really interesting. Are you currently doing well in the overall rankings?
I have no idea. All I'm focused on is the cash league. So. And
whereabouts are you in the cash league?
5th, right behind Nasty Balls.
Here we go.
Oh wow!
Fifth
place.
Brilliant!
We've got someone doing well in our cash mini league.
Hallelujah! Did you perhaps hear Steve-O moaning about the fact that we didn't have anyone come on air that was doing well in our cash mini league?
Here he is.
I have just been out of town, so I tried to call in, but it's hard. I was out of town for like a month. So.
I'm detecting an accent, Mr. Anderson. I'm imagining you're not from these neck of the woods.
No, I'm not. I am actually in Hong Kong right now. So
another person in Hong Kong. Do you know James Bang by any chance?
I chat with him, but no, I don't know him in person though.
That's insane.
There it is. There's James Bang now.
5:90. So 5:20 in the morning. You're listening to an FPL podcast with myself and Steve-O. You're 5th in the cash league. You must be getting quite excited about the prospect of winning some money.
Yes, I am, but Double M and Showing the Mana, it's kind of hard to catch up to. They're pretty good.
They are pretty good, but like we saw this week, Show Me the Mane got a little bit too cocky and it kind of backfired. All it takes is one bad week, and it throws it all open again. It's still quite close up there, and you've got. I don't know. I would love to know why you're sticking with Firmino. Obviously, he should have had a goal. He should have been given a goal. But other than that, what is it about Firmino that you kind of like? I want to hear this sort of thought process.
I mean, I watch him. I watched the Liverpool games, and he is getting into the right spots and stuff, and it's just not connecting the ball. Like, a few times he's just hitting the target, but it's just not going in. So,
so are you keeping faith because of his for the eye test? He's passing your eye test. So you're keeping the faith purely on that then?
Yep, exactly. And Salah's playing horribly, so.
Well, yeah, I can agree on that.
So yeah.
Interesting. So you're going to hold the 4 players. Sorry, Steve. I'm just going to ask one final thing. So you're going to not make any changes to those 2 Man City and 2 Liverpool players ahead of the fixture next weekend?
Nope, I'm holding them, but I'm benching Firmino. So.
Okay, benching Firmino. Interesting.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny though, Jason? If Mr. Anderson was to come on the screen and he didn't give us the information that he's just given us, and you look at this team and it's just like, why have you got Williams for? Why have you got Firmino? Why have you got? I don't know. Well, yeah, you know what I mean. It's just like, and he's doing so well. I'm surprised nobody in chat has said, why did you play Firmino over Soyuncu? Oh, shouldn't be saying that, but. You must be, in all seriousness, Mr. Anderson, you must be absolutely, genuinely loving life, doing so well in our Cash Money League. Did you, when you actually joined, did you think you'd be doing so well?
No, I was just thinking I'll be like mid-table, but like 1 week I did pretty well with Pepe and all of them, so I kind of shot up the ranking.
Oh, wow.
Well, there you go. Pepe, I mean, that's a name that I was blasting out in like game week 1, game week 2, saying, "Oh, he's an early wildcard player. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people bringing him in," and he kind of didn't do it for a lot of game weeks. And he scored that amazing free kick. I mean, he's a good player. I think he will turn out to be a consistent returner for Arsenal. Just not at the moment for me. He's not on the radar for me, especially at that price point. But yeah, I mean, Firmino, mate, best of luck to you, dude. I just think that is wasted.
Do you want to?
That money's wasted in Firmino.
I'm going to rub it into Mr. Anderson. So your rival that's directly below you, Juggernauts. The game's just updated and the auto subs have come in, and he had Soyuncu come on for Alonso. God. So his back line was Soyuncu, Montoya and Lundstrom. That got him a combined total of 47 points, just those 3 players alone. He got a total of 92, -4, so 88 points. That is crazy.
Can I have a question for you, if that's all right? A very quick question, because you're doing so well. What do you think I should do with Matip and David Silva? If David Silva becomes injured, do you think that I should just rely on my bench, which is pretty much Hudson-Odoi? Do you think I should be taking a -4?
I have no idea if Hudson-Odoi is going to play again.
Yeah.
Like, with Pulisic doing so well. But, yeah, Silver is hard. I don't know. Matip, he's out for like 6 weeks, isn't he? I think I should ship him out.
Yeah. It's just that the whole, who do I bring in? That's the dilemma that's going through my mind. You got Willems there. I don't think I'll be bringing him in. I'm looking at certain options, but I don't know. Maybe another Sheffield United, like Steve-O said. I have been looking at. Is it O'Connell? Is it O'Connell for Sheffield United?
He's doing pretty well, yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly him, and then using the money that I saved to upgrade David Silva to maybe Pulisic. But I can't. I don't know. I can't think about it now. It's just. Yeah, it's probably not the best time to think about doing transfers this early, even though it's going against what I normally do. But no, Mr. Anderson, it's a pleasure, man. 20 past 5, 24 minutes past 5 in the morning. The fact that you're even on the show is just brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Great talking to you too.
Any final things to say?
Hopefully we do better next week again. So
sounds good. I'm hoping. Do you know what? I've got a little sneaking suspicion that I may not have a good week next week.
I think most people won't with those City and.
I think
Liverpool, that's it. So.
Knocked back down to reality with 35, 36 points game weeks. Thank you ever so much, Mr. Anderson.
Yep.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers.
Well, let's be honest here. Next week's fixtures, the only standout one for me, looking at it now, is Leicester at home to Arsenal. Could it be another 9-0? Who knows? Let's bring on the next. Let's bring on.
Skink 97 has been waiting. Yeah, he's been waiting for quite some time. Skink 97. Good evening. You're currently muted. You're live on air on the FPL Sunday Surgery podcast. Myself and Steve. How are you doing, Skink?
Hi guys, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Well, you're doing great, but your team's not looking great. Do you want to tell us what happened with the? Hang on, what happened with lunch? Oh, yeah, Lundstrom. Talk us through what.
Why did you play Hudson-Odoi over Lundstrom? Shouldn't be doing that.
I actually challenged myself that I'll try to come on when I get a bad game week. So what happened is I played myself, you can say, because I got Hudson in instead of Lundstrom. I had that debate before the game week, but then I thought Hudson would do something else instead of Lundstrom, but my bet didn't work out.
At the end of the day, it's a logical, sensible. Why would you have Hudson-Odoi on your bench? I know Jason has him, but that's just circumstances. But
it's okay. It's not that bad. I'm still 53, maybe below average, but it should be fine.
It's about like what 10 below average or something like that. But it's to be honest with you, I just want to get when the games on Saturday afternoon when they kicked off and you saw Lundstrom had scored twice. How did you feel? I want to get the raw emotion here. How did you feel? Did you feel like you've been kicked in the nads?
My reaction was like, oh shit! This is gonna be one of those sneaky game weeks again, won't it?
Try not to swear. We are a family friendly show.
So
but yeah, it
was tough.
Your captain Kevin De Bruyne. Do you want to talk us through that Man City game?
I was emotional throughout the game because the minute I switched on to the game, we were 1-0 down. City was 1-0 down, and then I was like, "Oh my god, what have I done?" Because before that, 2 hours before the deadline, I was having a dilemma between Mane and De Bruyne, and then I thought maybe it's Southampton, and during the cup game, City were able to get the win, 3-1 win, and then I thought this might be easy since we've already played them, but that gamble didn't work out. I lost out on money. And then I thought maybe De Bruyne might sneak in like a last minute assist to help me through the game week, but that didn't happen. But yeah, that was all that happened about that.
Yeah, but you were upset about the Edison 1 point as well.
Yeah, it was a tough game week, but I bet this is like EPL. You can't really predict everything this season. This season has been tough to predict.
I mean, look, going forward, Hudson-Odoi, what's your plans going forward to game week 12 and onwards? Obviously, you've got a lot of good players in your team. I want to ask you bluntly, Hudson-Odoi in your team, is he a waste? Is he a waste of a slot? Is he a waste of money? You've got Lacazette there as well. Is that someone that you're confident with going forward?
The only reason I got Lacazette in was because Aubameyang was being played out wide. So I thought, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I thought maybe Lacazette would be the main man since Aubameyang was being pushed out wide. But Hudson, I got him out actually for next game week. I got him out. I needed someone else, so I got Hudson out, and I'm going to stick with Mount and Pulisic. But Mount is playing deeper now, so he might not get as many points.
I don't know. He could have scored 2 goals. Ben Foster.
He when watching Match of the Day last night, it was one of those
where save onto the bar was ridiculous.
Yeah, all I see in the Liverpool game is Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Chelsea. It's the same with Mason Mount.
I'm giving Mount, and I switched to Mount and Pulisic for the rest of the as I got into his wagon while he's on fire to maybe sip some juice while he's still on fire. That's Pulisic.
I mean, what's the thoughts about Tomori? I mean, a lot of people jumped on Tomori. His price is very attractive. Chelsea aren't that reliable at the back. Are you thinking of making some transfers ahead of Game Week 12? Or are you going to try and save a transfer?
For next game week, I'll save my transfers. At least have 2 later on. So I'll try and settle with this team for the next game week.
You've got the fortunate thing that you haven't got 6 players all playing against each other in Man City and Liverpool. You've only got the 3. Well, you got the 4, I should say, because you've got Edison as well. You've got the 4, but yeah, okay. I mean, you've got Lacazette and you've got Vardy in. I mean, if you want to save ahead of the break, I mean, that's a fair shout. Steve, have you got any other input on that?
Nah, I just look at this team and I think everything that you've done specifically this game week was all absolutely logical. No, I can't. You know, at the end of the day, who would you have played in? Who would you have taken out of that team for Lundstrom? Nobody.
If Steve had talked, I couldn't hear anything.
He's just basically saying that you've done the logical thing this game week. You've been very unlucky. I mean, you playing Hudson-Odoi over Lundstrom, there's a lot of logic in that, and I think nobody you can't be ridiculed for doing that. It's just an unfortunate thing, and obviously we expected Man City. A lot of people expected Man City to kick on and kind of thrash Southampton. That kind of didn't happen, and De Bruyne had one of his worst game weeks. So yeah, it's just one of those things, and. Move on to Game Week 12 and hope things are better for you, dude.
Yeah, true that. That's what I'll be aiming for.
Cheers.
Brilliant.
Cheers, Skink. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Cheers, dude.
Let's get on Notorious Nerd because I want to ask him about something.
Okay, let's bring him on. The Wind Turbine, Notorious Nerd. You're live on air. It's the Sunday surgery with myself and Steve. How are you feeling? Notorious Nerd. Can you hear me?
Brilliant. Oh well. Next.
AFK then. Right, no worries. Let's bring in Not Far Off. Not Far Off. Good evening.
Caller?
Not Far Off. Can you hear us? You currently got yourself muted. If you could just unmute yourself, that'd be amazing. Good evening. Not Far Off. Can you hear us?
Let's bring on your best mate, Crazy Jack, then.
Oh God. Good evening, Crazy Jack. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Welcome to the Elite FPL Rugby Show. Let's talk rugby, shall we?
It's fine.
Forget that.
I was rugby, mate.
That's fine.
How was the rugby?
I don't care, mate. I'm not an England fan. It's fine. I told you, dude. I told you I really didn't care. But you know, my fiance is very happy, as you can imagine. Though she was really happy, but she was in a room full of England supporters, so she couldn't really celebrate that much.
I wish I was there. Thought it'd so great. Sorry, you saying?
Yeah, well, I wasn't there actually. I was nursing a hangover for weird.
That was a great stream. I loved it.
Well, yeah, well, I think I actually stayed at home. I didn't go to the rugby in the end. I've still got a bit of my voice is still a bit croaky. But no, let's talk about your phenomenal luck in Mendy not playing a single minute in that Man City game and Lundstrom presumably coming off your bench. Is that
Crazy?
right?
Sorry, is there a gremlin
Jack,
in the...
Crazy Jack, can you hear me?
He's gone.
No, he's gone.
Call an ambulance. He's collapsed.
Let's see if we can get him back. We'll bring Not Far Off back on. Not Far Off, you're a new caller. It's a Sunday surgery with myself and Steve-O. Can you hear me?
How's it going, lads? How are you?
Great,
someone from Ireland.
Yeah, from Ireland. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, good, thank you. Not Far Off. You've got 59 points. You didn't take a hit. How was game week 11 for you?
Game week 11, I don't think it was that great. See, the dilemma I'm having is I'm not sure whether to get a big hit up front.
Could you possibly go closer to the microphone because you're very, very quiet? Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry boys. Can you hear me now? Perfect.
That's a bit better. Yeah, it's a bit better. So sorry about you. So game week 11, not so good for you. Can you tell us why?
No, I think part of it is Bernardo Silva. He's kind of been useless for me the last few weeks. Pope Pope didn't have a great only 2 points. And Pookie, I've got rid of him now for Jimenez, but he hasn't really done either, you know.
Right, for the people listening on audio, we've got Nick Pope in goal, Chilwell, Digne, and Rico, each returning 6 points. Nick Pope obviously getting the 2. We've got very little points in midfield. You've got Mane, Bernardo Silva, like you said, 2 points. Mason Mount, 1 point. Captain Kevin De Bruyne for 4 points.
I know, yeah.
You're sticking with Pookie with a relentless faith in Pookie from the first month of FPL, and then Tammy Abraham and Vardy returning you points there. So realistically, the big talking points is the fact that you've held on to Pookie and you've got Bernardo Silva, which is a rotation risk.
And Digne.
And you've also kept hold of Digne as well, which has paid off this week.
Yeah, Digne's delivered for me. I'm happy with him. I think I'm going to hold on to him. Well, with Pookie, I've already got rid of him for Jimenez. I've made that move already. So
you brought Jimenez and Pookie? Brilliant transfer. How have you afforded that? Is it?
I have a little bit of money in the bank. I think. Straightforward. Yeah.
Have you got who's the Liverpool player that's on your bench?
Matip. Yes.
Oh, God.
And I have Tobias. And he's taking up money. I have Tobias there sitting on the bench. And he's been useless.
So you've done your transfer, Pookie Jimenez. Are you going to be making any further transfers?
I think I might take a hit because see the way Liverpool are playing City next week. I have 3 players kind of wrapped up in that, and Bernardo Silva, he's definitely not going to get anything. So.
Would you take Bernardo Silva out for -4? That's the question. Who would you bring in?
Maybe Martial.
Oh.
Maybe.
Steve-O, take it away, my friend.
Well, I was immediately
talk about your friend Martial.
It's a nice move and everything. I mean, it makes again logical sense. But I'm thinking Pulisic. I'm seriously thinking of maybe getting a Pulisic from Mount. But in your specific case, maybe doubling up Chelsea. Oh, can you do that? Yeah, you could. You could bring in Pulisic for Bernardo Silva's what 7.5, something like that. So
7.2 Pulisic, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yeah, Pulisic, and he will be going up.
See, I'm thinking about Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. I'm thinking about getting one of them 2 in defense, or either going big up front with Kane, Aguero, and Aubameyang. You know, I think that's where I might be missing out on points.
How are you going to afford that?
I'm going to have to do a lot of mixing around.
Have you got a wild card?
No, that's the problem.
You can't realistically do that without a wild card, without taking a serious point hit. You'd be looking at -16, maybe a -20.
Weeks, maybe.
Maybe, but I think you don't need to do drastic moves like that at the moment. I think the Pookie out to Jimenez is a good move. Bernardo Silva, if you keep him, if you get rid of him, whatever. Pulisic, you probably may even just balance out. Spending this 4 points in the long run, you're gonna have a guaranteed starter, guaranteed 90-minute play. Well, not necessarily 90 minutes, but he's going to play serious minutes, isn't he, Pulisic? I seriously think
that would be
Say again. Sorry.
McGinn for Bernardo Silva. He seems to be bringing in the points, McGinn, and I'd have a lot of cash in the bank then.
McGinn is he's a good player, McGinn. But given the choice, it would, even though you got Mount in your team, I'd probably look at Pulisic as well. I agree with Steve-O. I would probably go Martial over McGinn. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. No, you're probably right because he's up front. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
He's not guaranteed.
If I did that,
Littman in chat says Pulisic isn't a guaranteed start. I mean, okay, he may not be guaranteed starter, but okay, he's more. I would say now he's proven himself to be.
He's taken his chance. Yeah. End of discussion.
Yeah. There's always a bit of a risk, but it's less of a risk, I think, with Pulisic than there is with Bernardo Silva. But if you want to go with Martial, I mean, we saw earlier on who was a gentleman with 3 Man United players, Steve-O, that came on a moment ago.
Oh, yeah, I know. I've forgotten who it was. But yes, I know who you're talking about. Completely forgotten, but yes.
Something Cruz.
That's it. Yeah.
Cruz came on and he had 3 United, so you never know. No, but I like your transfer, dude, and I hope to hear how you get on.
One more question. What about maybe Maddison or some of the Leicester boys, considering the form they're on? That could be a route to go down, no?
It could be a very good route to go down. They're a very, very good team at the moment. Maddison, Vardy are the two key players in that team. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, lads. Thanks for accepting me onto this call. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on.
For coming on.
We love to get first time callers on, and thank you for supporting the show. Thank you.
It's a million, boys. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
We've got some breaking news, Jason.
What's that?
Some very interesting breaking news indeed. So Manchester Reds, he did a -8 yesterday as a rage. Today, I'm assuming one of those players was Son, because Son then got a red card. He's going to be playing his free hit in game week 12. And at the moment, Manchester Reds, as of yesterday evening, was 11th in our Cash Mini League. So all our Cash Mini League rivals out there, Manchester Reds is being forced into playing a free hit next game week.
Maybe he's probably about 30 points ahead of me, so I'm looking forward to possibly catching some of those points, Manchester Reds. 11,500, well, more than 11,500 managers transferred in Son prior to that red card.
And I nearly did it today.
And there's probably a lot of people now that are transferring them straight back out. So don't do these transfers, guys, until you see the games pan out, because anything can happen. Can we move on to the next caller? We'll try Notorious again. Notorious, can you hear us? You're live on air on the Sunday Surgery.
Hello there. Good evening. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. All things
considered. My first question to you is, why did you not go with your own advice and Captain Mane?
Yeah, I thought like Mane would get something from that game, but it's just because Sterling had a more favorable fixture, so and it was a danger of not going with him with the captaincy because everyone was going to captain him. So because I went with the safe option with Sterling. So
still got a very, very good score though, 73 points. You did start Lundstrom this specific game week. You've unfortunately got Soyuncu and Rico on the bench, but tell us your thoughts on the Man City game and the fact that obviously Sterling and Kevin De Bruyne are blanked.
Yeah, pretty frustrating, I guess, for most people.
Mate, I'm gonna have to say, have you got a T-shirt in front of your mouth at the moment? Because somebody just said in chat that you sound like Kenny from South Park, and I'm inclined to agree with them right now. If it's not a fan that's blowing onto your microphone, then it's a rag in front of your mouth. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. It's clear.
I can't hear. I don't think the callers can hear you. What are you speaking through your mobile phone?
Yeah.
Is it a Nokia 3210?
Yeah,
I'm joking. I'm only joking. It's fine. No, Notorious. There's some serious issues with your sound. Or we'll have to speak to you tomorrow night or something. Hopefully we can get it sorted. Notorious, we'll speak hopefully tomorrow night. Speak again?
I said yeah.
All right, buddy. No worries. Take care.
Let's try Mental Gamer. Mental.
I don't know what happened there. Sorry, Notorious, if you watch this back. I did try my best to try and keep you going there. But Mental Gamer is now on air. You're live on air on the Sunday Surgery, Mental Gamer. Can you hear us? You've got yourself muted at the moment.
Hello.
Good evening. How are you? How's game week 11?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. How are you guys?
I'm great. Thank you ever so much. I just was looking at your team, and it's a very respectable 76 points. And surprise, surprise, exactly what Steve-O's talking about. Lundstrom. It's a lot of people got him. So
yeah,
so
great value.
How are you feeling about Son today? I mean, you've got to be feeling sorry for the lad first and foremost. It was awful.
Yeah,
such a nice
I saw
guy.
the challenge and his reaction afterwards. He was obviously distraught with. I've actually saw a slowed down replay, and it actually looks like Aurier was the collision with Aurier after the Son challenge,
I agree.
which
I think it was
broke Gomez's leg, ankle or foot.
I'm still not quite sure what part of him is broken, whether it's the leg or it's the ankle. Not that it actually matters, because I think it's bad enough anyway, but it did seem like the collision with Aurier kind of did the main bulk of the damage, but unfortunately Son was the one who kind of clipped him at speed, and it was the one that was deemed to have caused the foul in the first place.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if the injury wasn't there, that was never going to be a red card. I mean, originally the ref got a yellow, right? He got a yellow out.
He
and
got
then...
the yellow out of his pocket. He turned around. He basically, I was watching it live. He got the yellow card out. He was going to brandish it to Son. He turned around, looked at Gomez on the floor, saw that his foot wasn't pointing the right way, and was like, "No, this has got to be a red card." And yeah, that was it. That was, and I think even if Son had got a yellow, how the hell he would have been able to play on? I don't even know. He was in bits.
Yeah, he probably would have been subbed off.
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah, but I mean, it was just a freak. I'm going to put this down as freak accident. It wasn't a 2-3 tackle. It was a freak accident, and I feel very sorry for Son and even more
Gomez,
more sorry for Gomez, of course, because that's a really nasty injury to have. But yes, so moving forward with your team, you've got to be confident that. I mean, you don't own Salah, you don't own Mane. Obviously,
Liverpool players.
yeah, you don't own any Liverpool players. You've got hauls from Soyuncu and Lundstrom. You couldn't really have asked for much more this game week. I mean, your captain is basically the only one that's let you down. But your vice was De Bruyne. So
the thing is, I was never not going to captain Man City player this game week after Leicester's absolute thrashing of Southampton the other week. And I think it kind of saved me that pretty much everyone else who has Sterling has probably captained him anyway. It's just frustrating to see that. Obviously, it was either going to be between Sterling, De Bruyne, or next I was going to put on Abraham. So it's a bit frustrating he got 12 points. But since my wild card, I actually went on a breakfast show a few weeks back with Steve-O, I think the week before one of the international breaks.
Okay.
And since then, I've seen a rise from 1.3 million to I'm just inside the top 500k now. I'm like 499k. So going with no Liverpool players on that wild card is certainly, even though I'm a Liverpool fan, I just saw the fixtures. I saw we weren't playing particularly well.
I don't see the logic. I really want to know and I want to understand. Like, to go with no Liverpool players. I mean, I still think Trent Alexander-Arnold at 7.2.
Yeah, 3, I think.
I still think that he is putting in so many crosses that I think is going to be a game not too long. I don't think it's going to be long before he's getting 2 or 3 assists in a game. He had it last season. He got a hat trick of assists.
Yeah,
the guy is the best crosser at the ball. In my opinion, is the best crosser of the ball in the Premier League from the wing.
Ahead of De Bruyne? Oh yeah,
from the wing. Sorry, from the wing.
Yeah.
De Bruyne is a completely different ball game in terms of his eye for the pass, but in terms of pure like winger play, winger crosses, Trent Alexander-Arnold is hands down my favourite. But I'm getting to the point. Obviously, Steve-O's the clean sheets, the lack of is a big concern. But Liverpool fan, so it's a great person to ask. Mane is in the form of his life at the moment, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Are you not even thinking of possibly getting him in? Because, like, for me, Son now being injured, I'd be looking to downgrade. I would say even Aubameyang, and then upgrade Son to Mane. That's my sort of thought process.
So I've done something similar, but not quite along those lines. So Liverpool play Man City next. I don't expect a clean sheet in that game. Trent could very well get some points.
Probably 0-0.
Yeah, probably. Actually, now I've said that. That was one of the games last season, wasn't it? 0-0. So I've gone Son today because I after the red card, I've gone Son to Martial just because he's playing up front. He's 7.6, I think. And any game he's actually played in, I think he's scored if he's started. I'm pretty sure.
Apart from yesterday when I bring him in, yeah.
Yeah, apart from yesterday. So I think I've got 2.3 million in the bank now from Son to Martial, and I think I had 1 million anyway. So I've got 2.1. So my plan is after the City game to go one of my defenders to. I was going to go to Robertson, but I want Trent. The only other thing is, instead of going a defender to Robertson, I could go either Sterling or De Bruyne to Mane.
Oh, I wouldn't recommend getting rid of De Bruyne. I think one bad game isn't enough. And I think Sterling is, very unlucky not to have got, certainly not at least one assist in that game against Southampton. I think if Sterling had got that assist, I think people would be not so upset about him this week. No, I think there's money to be gained. I think Sterling's going to outscore Aubameyang over the. Well, I know the fixtures for City aren't great, but I do think Sterling's a better asset in my opinion than Aubameyang. I know that some people may disagree on that, Steve-O.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he didn't even. Yeah, but Aubameyang is the money that you need to bring in Mane in my opinion.
So what I will probably do, not this week, like I said, because obviously City, Liverpool play City. Because I'm not happy, even though when I wildcarded, I was happy taking Liverpool players out. I'm not happy having no Liverpool players in my team. Especially, I love Mane, I love Trent. I'm not fussed on not having Salah.
I can't stand Liverpool. All right, I can't stand Liverpool. I would love it for City to completely dominate them next week. But I still own Mane because I play FPL without any allegiances. And I think you are missing out big time by not having Mane in your team. I really, really do. And the fact now that Son's suspended, and I think that money you got available then in Aubameyang, it's a bit of a no-brainer for me. I would keep Mount, I'll keep Sterling, I'll keep De Bruyne, but I'll bring Mane in for Son, and I'll downgrade Aubameyang.
Yeah, I was thinking I could go Aubameyang to, is it Connolly? That would get me loads of money because isn't he like 4.6 or something like that?
You don't need to go that low, do you?
Because but what I was thinking is then I could get Mane in for Son, and I could also upgrade one of my defenders to Trent probably, and then still have some left.
Yes, well you could do that. Yeah, you could do. But then again, it comes down to do you want it to be taken in -4s for defenders and things like that. But again,
I wouldn't do it this week anyway because of City. But
well,
after City, Liverpool have good fixtures.
Absolutely. Good evening, Ian Anderson. By the way, no, I definitely think that you're on the right mindset of the transfers. Obviously, the Son transfer is probably going to happen, isn't it? And I think we're pretty much set there, aren't we? I mean, it's a case of seeing how the game week, obviously the week pans out, make sure there's no injuries to any other players, and then decide on the press conference and hopefully not miss out on too many price rises in the meantime.
Yeah, the only thing I'd actually question is, you mentioned about Aubameyang. Would you say, because of his price at 11, I think he's just still 11, would you, he's been returning pretty consistently, but never, I don't think he's hit double digit.
Single digit hauls, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always single digit. So even though it's kind of like Callum Wilson was earlier at the start of the season, would you say someone who is returning consistently but single digits, over the course of the season, if he got 6 points every single game, you surely think, is it worth it to keep him at that? That's all, because it's hard to take out a player who doesn't blank too much.
Well, it's the whole conundrum that I've got with Aguero as well, because not so much in the fact that he hasn't got the potential to give me a haul, it's the fact that he's got the minute problem.
Yeah.
And it's the money that's tied up in him. When you've got midfielders at a much lower price point, they can get bigger hauls because they're playing and they're getting more points for the goals. So it's considerations all the time. And I would say if that was my team, I'd be doing the move I just said to you.
Yeah, Aubameyang down and then Son up to Mane. Yeah, I think that's definite. And then after City, look at getting in Trent with the.
But what I will say is,
funds.
If you do that, it depends on how you look at it. If you do that, you're then starting to move towards a similar team to a lot of the teams that you're competing with. So Aubameyang still is going to be a bit of a differential for you. So again, just have a think about it. Just have a long think about it. Steve-O, you got any final thoughts on that?
No. I want to bring on Blaze AFK in a second.
Right, no worries.
Cheers,
Mental Gamer. Thank you ever so much for joining us tonight. I much appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Great, thanks.
Speak soon, hopefully. Cheers.
Right,
Thank
all
you.
right, great. Right, cheers.
We've only got a few minutes left, but
before we do that, I've got something I need to share with you guys, and that is a message from tapsport.co.uk, who kindly entered our community into their monthly prize draw of £100. It's a free-to-play game, And basically, I've got an announcement. We've got a winner. Right, so an October winner on the bonus ball has said that he's going to give his £100 prize to our show. His name is Alpine FPL. So Alpine FPL, he's deferring his monthly £100 prize to our show. So yeah, so that's literally the information I got. This is the information I got this evening. So Alpine FPL, if you're watching,
that's extraordinary. Thank you.
That's
wow,
very, very generous of you. Thank you ever so much. And again, it's going into improving this. I'm getting a new computer because I need to upgrade the CPU, and it's all going back into the stream. And Steve-O's going to get new internet. You get a new internet, Steve-O?
Yeah, at the end of the month. Yeah.
There we go. And hopefully I can see you eventually getting a desktop PC, Steve-O. I really do. Anyway, moving on from that, let's bring in who was it? Blaze AFK. Thank you, Chris Noel. Appreciate that. Good evening, Blaze. You're on the Sunday surgery. Myself and Steve. How you doing? Good evening, Blaze.
Hi. Hello.
Good evening.
What made you do this triple captain colony?
I was really thinking he was gonna score like at least a goal.
Well, that's the reasoning. That's it. There's got to be more to it.
At least a goal. I mean, you're going to triple captain someone that you thought was going to score at least a goal.
Well, that was the minimum. I thought that was the floor for me.
If you'd have scored a goal, would you have been happy then?
Well, how my week ended, yes. Given that, yes. On average, no.
Okay, so let's talk through your team. You've got Ryan in goal, got 6 points. You've got Alexander-Arnold, Pereira, and Otamendi.
Stop. What were you thinking when Otamendi came on for that cameo? I mean, flaming hell, that's awful.
Yep, that was. I was like, I saw he didn't start. Okay, I saw that Mendy didn't start, and Angelino started. I was like, okay, if Pep was not gonna make a change in defense, was that gonna be Angelino to Mendy, right? Nope. Otamendi came on the 92nd minute. They played like 2 minutes.
Awful.
And I bet you felt sick. Because I would have felt absolutely sick. And Steve-O said that he would have quit FPL for the year, and he would have just left his team going to a ghost. Even though I don't believe he would have, but that's what he said. De Bruyne was revised. I mean, the irony is De Bruyne got the same bloody points that Connolly got. I mean, it's just
or even a son who got a red card. That's amazing.
Have you got your wild card, Blaze?
No, I don't. I use it like game 2 or 3. I made my transfer for the next week though.
What's your transfers for next week?
Son to Mane and David Silva to Martial.
This Martial, loving Jason. I mean, you're a Man United fan, and you hate him.
I don't hate Martial. I just don't rate him as an FPL asset. I like him as a player. I don't rate him as an FPL asset at the moment.
Despite him scoring on a regular basis. Makes sense, yeah.
Well, I can give you my reasoning behind it if you want.
We'll wait and see. I mean, I think that again, like the caller we had on with 3 Man United, I'll say the same thing. Okay, it's a wait and see. And I think Martial, I mean, could easily with the run of fixtures they've got, Martial could easily get you some decent hauls. Okay, I'm not going to lie. It's just something that I just think there's other players that I find more attractive FPL wise over Martial at the moment for similar price points. But no, I mean I love the upgrade. Santa Mane, out of what we've seen, I would say that you've made the right decision. So there you go.
Okay, here's an interesting fact for you, Jason. You have David Silva, right?
I do.
Okay, whenever Pep needs to add a second forward, like if there is only Aguero playing and he needs to add Jesus or the opposite, he always takes off David Silva.
Yeah.
Whenever they are down, that's what he does. And seeing the next few game weeks, I can see that happening, like with Chelsea, with Liverpool. If he needs a second striker, David Silva goes. I can't afford that.
Oh, that's fair enough. I mean, I just hope that Martial pays you back those 4 points, dude.
Well, he's gonna get more than what David Silva got this week, so.
But again, it could always fall down to who's on your bench. And I mean, ultimately, you've been very unlucky. You've been very, very unlucky this week. And I mean, I certainly wouldn't. I certainly don't understand the triple captain of Connolly. I think that's really risky. But I do say, and Steve-O says it as well, triple captains are done on players. They're best served on players that are not highly captained on game weeks where they haul. So it could have worked. It could have. You could have easily been coming on tonight saying, "Look at me, you know, I've got 20 plus point haul from Connolly because I triple captained him," and we'd have been like, "Okay, that was really out there." It's like people that there's 12 managers that triple captain Lundstrom this game week.
16 of them.
Was it 16? I thought I read 12. Yeah. I thought it was 12, but okay.
But triple captain, did you say?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Twitter said it was like 200 captains and 16 triple captains.
Yeah, but they're not real players. If any of those 16 are doing really, really well this season, then I'll be fine. I'll be proven wrong. But I bet
none of them are in the top 100,000. But no,
well, they are doing really well now. So
yeah.
Blaze, so you've done your transfers. Are you feeling confident ahead of the? So who's your captain going to be for game week 12? Now you've brought Mane in.
Abraham.
Not Vardy.
No, because I'm an Arsenal fan.
You're an Arsenal. Okay. Well,
although I might change it because Abraham is at home and I know his away form is best.
Well, Connolly's got Man United next.
Yeah, not captaining him again.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't rage transfer him out, to be honest with you, Blaze. But no,
who was gonna get that 4.6 or 7 million?
No, exactly, no. I'm not. I think you've made the right transfers. You've been they're positive transfers. They're positive transfers that you've made. Yeah. So the best of luck to you going forward, dude.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking time to come on the show and talk to us about your team.
No problem. Thank you for the content.
Thank you. James, we've got quite a few people.
I was going to say, we're going to have to cut this, but who should we bring on? Maybe one final caller?
I want to bring on James Bang, because James Bang has been with the support for quite some time. A lot of new faces tonight in the Discord.
Come on tomorrow.
Come on tomorrow night. All I will say is, if you're new to Discord and you want to talk to us, come on tomorrow night. We'll have more time to talk to you. Tonight, unfortunately, we're running out of time. James Bang. James, you're live on air. Are you there, James? You're muted at the moment. Please be there, James. I know you were in chat a second ago.
People had a go at me for benching Lundstrom, and James has benched the Aubameyang.
He could be going to make a cup of tea. You never know. James, we'll have to bring you on tomorrow night, dude, if you're listening. And it's like, God knows what time. It's 6 o'clock in the morning.
Bring on Dre. Dre's
there. Oh no, he's back. He's there. He's there. James is there. James.
Hello.
James, I've just put pen on my lips. How you doing?
Hey, good, Jason. How are you guys? Hello, Steve-O.
Yeah.
Why did you bench Aubameyang?
It's been a frustrating week with Soyuncu on the bench there.
That doesn't answer my question. Why did you bench Aubameyang?
James.
You know what? I'll give you the truth. I really thought Connolly would get 2 goals, and I figured Aubameyang might get 1.
So did Blaze.
You know, my score prediction was 1-1 for Arsenal, and I figured, I don't think, it's unlikely Aubameyang's going to get the goal, being one goal haul, and I figured Brighton would get at least 2, and they did. It's just one of those weeks.
I'm sorry, it's a good thing I'm sitting down, because I think I may have fainted. The fact that you've banked your points on Connolly over Aubameyang, who's I really am surprised. I must admit, I am surprised, because that is wow.
I've never been this frustrated in all these weeks.
I mean, it's only cost you 6 points. It's only cost you 6 points. I understand that.
Yeah, I was all right on Saturday, but then after Sunday with those 2 points as well, I was just fuming.
Well, it could have been worse. You could have played well. You could have played Sancho over Lundstrom, and you would have been missed out on those points. But I mean, again,
what were you thinking when Sancho scored, though?
wow. You know, the clean sheet was bad enough, I thought, but when that goal went in, just threw my phone.
The thing is, Steve, it's exactly the same thing. It's the same dilemma that you came out with. Okay, assuming he played Aubameyang over Connolly, because that's just out there for me. But even if he did that, who would he have benched for Soyuncu? Like maybe Tomori because of the
Yarmolenko, I guess.
Well, I like Yarmolenko. I think he's a good player.
Yeah.
But this team is set up as a 3-5-2 formation. Reality is that that's how it's set up. You're always 99 times out of 100 you're going to be playing Aubameyang over a Connolly. Then it's a question of which players do you play from defence. Well, you're going to play your home players, and in this case,
that's right.
Alexander-Arnold, Lundstrom, and then Tomori was away. I get that, but Tomori had the easier fixture than Soyuncu away at Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, of course, the history suggested that Crystal Palace should win. Leicester have done really, really poorly against Crystal Palace, and they've just turned up, just like they did against Southampton. They just turned up on the day, and they found a way. And for me, I'd be playing a Leicester defender every single week.
Do you think Do you think Leicester City could end up in the top 4 this year, Steve-O?
Yes, of course they bloody can.
What about you, James?
100%. I think they're going to qualify for the Champions League.
They have to.
They're looking very, very good, aren't they? Certainly. So, question is, James, to kind of get to the point. Game week 12.
So I've taken a -4 already, guys.
Oh, here we go. Go on, let's hear it.
Ederson out, Yarmolenko out. Can't stand him after being, taken off at half time. And I've brought in a 2-week punt of Richarlison from Everton. They've got Southampton and Norwich next, and I think that's a great, opportunity to get some goals while he's playing up front.
Who in Richarlison?
So I got rid of Ederson, brought in Gaza to be able to fund a Yarmo upgrade.
Blimey.
Yarmolenko to who? Sorry.
Richarlison from Everton, who's playing up front, and they've got Southampton and Norwich next.
Okay. Richarlison, I was burnt loads of times from Richarlison. The fixtures are nice. It could pay off, but it could easily not. The way the season's going. But what I'll say is that Yarmolenko, I don't know, it was frustrating that he got subbed off, but I do rate him as a player. I think he's a brilliant player. I would have been getting, I think Connolly, you kind of saving, you got that as a kind of a bench player there. I don't know why you would play him over Aubameyang. Like I said, I would have probably just stuck with maybe not taking the -4, taking Ederson out for -4 probably isn't the best move.
No.
In my opinion, even against Liverpool, I can see him getting world class saves because he's that sort of goalkeeper. He's probably one of the best, if not the best, goalkeeper in the Premier League.
I guess that's what a rage transfer is. I guess
that's what a rage transfer is, my friend. And yeah, James, you've done the transfers. You got to live with it now, mate. And
absolutely.
And it's a game. It's an emotional roller coaster. What were you thinking when Sterling were blanked? Were you just, and obviously at that point you'd seen the Lundstrom haul, so you were kind of a bit conflicted. Happy to own Lundstrom, but gutted that your captain didn't do anything.
I did have that nagging feeling. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in a row.
So, never considered Abraham? I don't think many people really. Well, some people may have, but
this coming week he is my captain.
You wouldn't have changed the captaincy because of that 9-0 defeat that Southampton had. Let's be honest, Man City playing them. It was on the cards, but it didn't happen. No, James.
Steve-O, what do you think about starting Loughton next week against West Ham?
No, not when you've got Lundstrom, Tomori, and Soyuncu. Burnley at the moment, just avoid like the plague. We're in, I don't know what's going on at the moment, but we've conceded 7 goals in the last 2 fixtures. West Ham have got a very good record against us. I'm a bit concerned that they may be able to get 2 or 3 past us next week. So, in fact, it's like Suz says off Planet FPL. If you need a team to help you out, get you out of the drains, West Ham is that team. So maybe we could beat West Ham, but I'm not looking forward to that game whatsoever, and I think that could be again, West Ham could get back into winning ways against us. So I in answer to your question, I wouldn't be playing Lamp at all.
Okay, cheers. And I just wanted to say I really enjoyed the Match of the Day stream, and I knew of the results, obviously, but I had it on 2 screens. One screen watching you, while watching Match of the Day on another screen, seeing what you were watching. So that was a real fun way to watch.
Do you think it's something that you'd like to see again?
If you guys do it, I will join. And avoid the results.
So you think it's a good idea for me and Steve both to do the challenge together?
I think it's an excellent result.
Okay.
Sorry, an excellent idea.
Well, there we go.
And I just wanted to let people know out there, if you guys haven't joined the membership, the X-rated, unfiltered Steve-O extra videos out there are just absolutely quality. If you guys enjoyed the Jason wine stream, you will love Steve-O's unfiltered stream. So go ahead and join, guys.
Cheers, James. Really appreciate. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's
thank you.
It's real at the end of the day.
Appreciate it,
Yeah.
James. Thank you for all your support.
Thank you.
Dude. Cheers, dude. We'll speak soon.
Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.
All the people waiting to come in the waiting room, if you're listening in, we will speak to you tomorrow night. Lewis, Lil Lad, and Pro and Pro Bars. I hope you're going to spit some bars tomorrow night. We'll get you on hopefully tomorrow night, guys. We've run out of time. It's gone 10 o'clock. Steve, do you want to do the admin?
Absolutely. And FPL Penguins just alerted to me the fact we're only 70 subs away from 3,000. So it's the standard thing of if you come back all the time, you haven't subscribed to the show, by all means, just simply hit that subscribe button. Of course, as ever, if you have enjoyed the stream, the easiest way to support the show is by hitting the like button once you are walking out the door, as I always say. If you want to follow us on Twitter, at Elite FPL, we just put up funny videos, and of course, when we're going live, but really, I'd just go on there just to watch the funny videos because they are very, very amusing indeed. Other than that, elitefpl.com for all the merchandise that we sell. Also, Instagram at Elite FPL as well. Other than that, I can't think of anything other to plug other than come back tomorrow evening when myself and Jason will be going over the mini league, the cash mini league, and of course the free community league that everybody's part of. Other than that, I think that's a wrap, Jason. Thank you everybody for joining us as per normal.
Thank you, guys. I hope you have a great Sunday night and into Monday. Cheers.